So, who ruined the housing market? I mean, seriously, you ask 10 people that question and you'll probably get 15 different answers. Some people say it was the boomers, some others blame millennials, some blame the Generation Z, some blame the government, some blame investment companies, let's blame Airbnbs, illegal immigration, some blame interest rates, some blame greedy real estate agents or greedy home sellers, some blame the builders. And you can't forget some blame the Federal Reserve. And if you spend enough time on social media, I'm pretty sure someone will eventually blame the moon. Everybody has a villain, everybody has a reason, everybody has proof. And here's the crazy part. Almost everyone is right. But almost everyone is also wrong. Because we've taken one of the most complicated economic problems in America and tried to explain it in one sentence. It's the boomers, it's corporations, it's government, it's immigrants, it's greedy people. Life usually isn't that simple, and neither is this. Now, before we go any further, I want to make something very clear. This isn't a political video. This isn't a video about proving one generation is better than the other. This isn't about defending one side or attacking the other. It's about asking one simple question. What if everyone is only seeing one piece of the puzzle? Because you step back and really look at it, the housing market isn't one problem, it's a bunch of smaller problems that all collide at the same time. Some started years ago, some happened during COVID, some are still happening today, and until you put all those pieces together, none of the arguments really make complete sense. So, instead of asking who's to blame, let's ask a better question. Why can't people afford a house anymore? Because I have a feeling the answer isn't really as simple as social media wants us to believe. So, let's look at both sides. So, where did all this start? That's actually a harder question than you might think. Because if you ask someone who's 20 years old, they'll probably tell you the housing market has always been crazy. If you ask someone who's, say, 65, they'll probably tell you houses used to be affordable. And honestly, they're both right. There was a time when buying a home was easier than it is today. But let's not pretend it's was some magical fairy tale either. Homes were smaller, families shared bedrooms. Most houses had one bedroom or bathroom, which also meant if your dad was in there as well, whatever emergency you had, better not be as much of an emergency. People stayed in the same house for 30 or 40 years. They didn't remodel the kitchen every 5 years because social media decided one color was out and another color was in. Back then, if the cabinet closed, you kept them. If the roof wasn't leaking, you considered yourself lucky. And if the carpet had a few stains, you either put the couch over them or you just called it character. Funny how a stain becomes character once you actually own the home. Life wasn't perfect, it was just different. Now, before someone starts typing an arguing comment or an angry comment, I'm not saying life back then was easier. Every generation had its own challenges: high interest rates, layoff, factory closures, inflation. Every generation has had something. But there's also no denying that buying a home today has become incredibly difficult for a lot of people. Prices have gone up, inflation rates have changed, wages haven't always kept pace. People have every right to be frustrated. Honestly, if you're trying to buy your first house right now, I don't blame you for being frustrated. But then I started noticing something that didn't quite make sense to me. Now, I'll be honest with you, I've never had the homeowner bug. I've never dreamed of having a home with a white picket fence. An apartment has always been enough for me. But once in a while, I'll drive around and look at houses for sale, not because, I'm planning on buying one. Honestly, I'm just being nosy. I keep thinking maybe one day I'll drive by a house and it'll say, yep, this is the one, and it'll flash, buy me, buy me, buy me. It hasn't yet, but every time I do this, I've noticed something. I see older homes sitting there for sale. Sometimes they've been sitting so long, I think the for sale sign in the mailbox each know each other by names. The grass is a little taller. The paint starts to look tiring. You can tell they've been waiting for the right buyer for a while. Then I drive a mile away and there's a brand new subdivision. Not 5 houses, not 10 houses, but hundreds of houses. Brand new sidewalks, brand new streets, brand new everything. Every house looks almost exactly the same. And I swear they build one and then hit copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. Now here's what gets me thinking. Builders don't spend millions of dollars building entire neighborhoods because they have a good feeling about it. I don't think the meeting goes something like this. All right, everybody, I have an idea. Let's spend millions of dollars building 400 houses and let's just hope for the best. Yeah, I'm guessing that's not how billion-dollar companies make business decisions. So somebody is buying those houses. Somebody wants them. And that's where I started asking myself a question. If everybody says nobody can afford a house, then who keeps buying all the new ones? Now, before the comments explode, I'm not saying people aren't struggling. They absolutely are. I'm just saying maybe there's another piece of this puzzle that we haven't looked at yet. Because every time I think I've dug deeper and dug enough into this housing thing to finally figure it out, I brush away another layer and think, oh, look, another layer of questions. Maybe that's why this conversation is so frustrating. We've all been trying to find one simple answer when the truth is, every time you dig a little deeper, you uncover another layer. And that's exactly where we're heading next, because one of the biggest layers is supply. So let's dig down another layer. Remember what we were just talking about? I said every time I drive around, I see brand new housing developments going up everywhere. So here's the question that started bouncing in my head. If we're building all these new homes, why does it still feel like there aren't enough houses? That confused me for a while. Then I realized something. Building houses and building enough houses aren't necessarily the same thing. Think about it this way. What happens when you have more people looking for houses than you have houses available to buy? People compete, and whenever people compete for something, the price usually goes up. That's not politics, that's not greed, that's just how supply and demand works. It's like having 10 people trying to buy the last loaf of bread at the grocery store. That loaf of bread suddenly becomes a whole lot more valuable. Now, don't worry, I'm not comparing houses to bread, although inflation keeps doing what it's doing. We may all end up with a house mortgage and a loaf of bread mortgage. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. But here's where another layer shows up. Yes, we're building houses. We can all see that. But there are also more people looking for homes than there used to be. Families are growing, people are moving, some people are buying their first home, others are looking to upgrade, some are downsizing. At this point, building homes has become more expensive. Land costs more, materials cost more, labor costs more, permits take longer, infrastructure has to be added, roads, water, electric, schools. All of that has to happen before people can even move in. Then there's something else I found interesting. Sometimes a builder wants to build a new neighborhood and the people who already live there don't want it built. They're worried about traffic. They're worried about overcrowded schools. They're worried about changing the character of the neighborhood. And honestly, I understand that. If you've lived somewhere for 20 years, you probably don't want a construction site in your backyard for the next two. See, there's another layer. The people wanting to buy houses aren't wrong. The people already living there aren't necessarily wrong either. They're just looking at the situation from two completely different perspectives. And that's something I've noticed keeps happening with this topic. Almost everybody has a point. They're just looking at different pieces of the puzzle. Now, before somebody says, well, then just build more houses. That sounds simple until somebody wants to build 300 homes right behind your backyard. It's funny how fast we all become city planners. Every layer I uncover seems to reveal another one underneath it. And that's when I started realizing maybe the housing market isn't broken because of one decision. Maybe it's the result of thousands of decisions made by millions of people, all for reasons that made sense at the time. And I have a feeling we're still at the bottom of the hole because there's another layer we need to talk about. So, let's dig another layer. There's something else I've been wondering about. And before I say it, hear me out. I'm not saying this is the reason people can't afford houses. I think we've already established the problem has a whole lot of layers to it. But I do wonder, when did enough stop being enough? Think about what we see every day on we open social media. Someone's touring a $6 million mansion. Someone else is showing off their dream kitchen. Someone your age is driving a brand new luxury car. Another person is telling you they retired at age 28. And after about 10 minutes, your perfectly normal life suddenly feels, well, not so normal anymore. I think social media has quietly changed our expectations. Years ago, a starter home was exactly that, a piece or a place to start. It wasn't your forever home. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't magazine worthy. It wasn't designed for YouTube. It was simply the first step. Today, sometimes it feels like we're comparing our first chapter to someone else's highlight reel. Now, maybe I'm completely wrong, but it's something I've caught myself thinking about. And then I started wondering, have we stopped looking for a house and started looking for a lifestyle? That question reminded me of an old friend of mine. Years ago, he was looking for a house. Every weekend, he'd go out looking at these brand new developments. He wanted a house that nobody had ever lived in. Brand new everything. And every Monday, I'd ask him, find one? Nope. Either it was too basic or it had everything he wanted. He just couldn't afford it. This went on for months. Finally, I told him, why don't you go look at a fixer-upper? He looked at me like I had completely lost my mind. A fixer-upper? Why would I want somebody else's old house? I said, because you're not buying it for what it is today. You're buying it for what it could become. Well, after enough convincing, he finally agreed to go look. And when you know it, he found one. Now, it wasn't perfect, not even close to perfect. It needed work. A lot of work. And I mean, a lot of work. So over the next few years, he poured himself into that house. His friends helped, I helped, and honestly, I spent so much time over there helping, I started wondering if I should just move in. So little by little, room by room, the old fixer-upper became exactly the house he wanted. That was over 20 years ago. He's still there, he still loves that house, and that's when something hit me. Sometimes the starter home becomes a forever home. Not because it started out perfect, but because someone loved it enough to make it perfect for them. Now, before somebody misunderstands me, I'm not saying everyone should go buy a fixer-upper. That's not the point. The point is this. Maybe somewhere along the way, we stopped seeing what a house could become and started judging it for what it wasn't. Maybe social media convinced us that success means walking into a house that's already perfect. But sometimes the best things in life are built one project, one weekend, and one memory at a time. And maybe that's another layer we don't talk about enough. So, after digging through all these layers, I think we finally reach one that makes people a little uncomfortable. Not because it's political, not because it's controversial, but it's personal. We spent this whole video talking about things we can't control. You know, you can't control interest rates, you can't control housing supplies, construction costs, inflation, government policies, the economy. Those things are real and they affect all of us. But I also think we've reached another layer. The one we actually have some control over. Now, before anyone gets upset, hear me out. I'm not saying everyone who can't afford a house has made bad decisions. Some people have done everything right. They've worked hard. They've saved money. They've sacrificed. And they've still watched home prices running away from them. That's real. And I don't want to pretend otherwise. But I also know people who tell me they've been completely shut out of the housing market. Then I look at what they're wearing and I'm thinking, well, I think your shoes just made my mortgage payment or my rent payment, if you will. Okay, maybe that's a slight exaggeration, but you get my point. And before anybody thinks I'm judging, believe me, remember my Discover card moment? Yeah, I'm probably the last person who would be standing up here pretending I've always made smart financial decisions. We've all bought things we probably shouldn't have, sometimes because we want to impress another person, sometimes because we've convinced ourselves I deserve it. Sometimes just because it made us happy. We've all been there. So this isn't me pointing fingers. It's me asking a question. Have we started spending money trying to look successful instead of becoming successful? Because those aren't always the same thing. I think social media has quietly convinced us that success has to be visible. The right house, the right neighborhood, the right car, the right clothes, the right vacations, the right everything. And if we don't have those things, we somehow feel like we're falling behind. But behind who? A stranger on the internet? Someone showing us the best 30 seconds of their week? That doesn't seem like a very fair comparison. I think one of the most expensive monthly payments a person can make is comparison. Not because it shows up on your bank statement, but because it quietly convinces you that what you have is never enough. And maybe that's another reason this conversation is so difficult. Some people have genuinely been priced out of the housing market. Some people have made financial decisions they've changed if they could. Some people have done both. Life is messy like that, which brings me back to everything we've been digging through today. Maybe the housing market isn't one story. Maybe it's thousands of stories, some filled with bad luck, bad timing, difficult choices, opportunities, and most of them are probably a little bit of all four. But at the end of the day, I can't control interest rates. I can't control inflation. I can't control what builders charge. I can't control government policies, but I can control my expectations. I can control my spending, my patience. I can control whether I'm building my life or trying to copy someone else's. Maybe after digging through all those layers, or all these layers, that's the one that matters most. Not because it's the only layer, but because it's the one that's mine. Well, that's what I found after digging through this one. The housing market is complicated, it's frustrating, and depending on who you ask, everybody has a different villain. But after digging through all these layers, I don't think there was ever just one answer. There was a whole lot of them. Some I agreed with, some I didn't, and some honestly surprised me. And I have to, and I have a feeling we probably haven't reached the bottom yet. Now, I don't expect everyone to agree with me and agree with everything I said today. Honestly, I hope you don't, because this series was created to tell you what to. This series was never created to tell you what to think. Heck, I'm just a guy with a shovel trying to dig a little deeper into life. Sometimes I'll uncover something interesting, and sometimes I'll uncover another question, and sometimes I probably uncover the fact that I was wrong, and that's okay, because if we stop digging, we stop learning. So, if you agree with me, great. If you disagree with me, that's great too. Just keep asking questions, keep challenging your own opinions, keep looking beneath the surface. And if there's another topic you'd like us to dig into, leave it down in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. So until next time, keep digging.